Please return to your seats for the most amazing session of the day, the cooking demonstration. I mean, this is my favorite part.
Oh. Do you need an extension? Okay.
Do you need one? Can you start with that? Okay. All righty. Ooh. 2 seconds. Do 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 do.
I don't want to do it. Here's a bigger one. She's going to get to one.
We can start. All right, everyone ready for a cooking demo? Yay! Okay, so Erica Nedley, she is the author of the book Brighten Up Breakfast, and she is here to give this awesome cooking demonstration. She has a lovely assistant working with her today, Dr. Neil Nedley. And I'm just going to let them take it away.
Actually, can you hear me? Hello, hello, testing.
No,
It's not done? Okay, Dr. Nedley.
is it? It sounds like it should be.
Hello, can you hear me? Great. Actually, I am his assistant. It goes back, I heard in 1986, somebody became a plant-based vegetarian right there. We just got married. And within 5 months, my husband comes home and says, what about a vegan or plant-based cooking? And this was 1986, if you recall, vegetarianism was actually a disease. So he started doing all of this research, and then he comes home and he says, can we start cooking this way? And you want to say something?
Well, maybe I need another microphone. Would you have one? So I was doing some research. At this point, I was in my internal medicine residency, seeing a lot of heart disease and strokes, and taking care of a lot of hospitalized patients. And I was also very interested in this because, as mentioned, my grandparents died in their early 60s from disease. I knew my father had issues. And so I'm wondering about what's the healthiest diet. And there was a cardiologist who was in my residency program who was starting to talk about a plant-based diet. And I thought that he was wrong. I thought, this is, I'm sure there's not enough research to support this.
We actually had friends on a plant-based diet, and we always felt so sorry for them because we didn't think they knew what's the best way. But we're in for a surprise.
Yeah, and so, but since he was my superior, you don't argue with your superior. You have to arm yourself first, and you arm yourself with scientific literature. And so I began to do a lot of research in the medical library to see what was actually true. And it took me a while because I was doing clinical medicine, but every time I had a chance, I would go to the library in the middle of the day when I was, maybe had a few minutes between patients or between some sort of presentation. And after about 4 or 5 months, I came home with a very sober look on my face. Because, well, she didn't tell you the rest of this
Yeah.
about the first time that I took her out on a date.
I ordered the meat dish with a steak, and he ordered the plain vegetable plate, was just a vegetarian.
Yeah, I ordered vegetarian, she ordered meat, which was fine. I was at that time I was lacto-ovo vegetarian, but it was very much lacto-ovo. And so I thought that was a healthier way to go. And so, but after that, Erica became very interested in
I went to his
cooking.
house and actually got the recipes from his mother. I did want to win the man. So I really admire his desire to continue talking to him after this diet ordering, when we first went out to eat. But he just encouraged me, and 36 years later, we're still on a plant-based diet, and you cannot tell that
Well,
we
I'm sure
suffered.
we're healthier. Yeah, I'm sure we've been a lot healthier as a result. But anyways, in '86, after she had become lacto-ovo,
Yeah.
and we had been married, we got married December of '85, so we've been married about
4 or 5 years.
yeah,
4 or 5
well,
months.
yeah, several months. And so I come home to her and I said, "Do you think we can go totally plant-based?" She goes, "Well, what would that look like?" I said, "No eggs, no dairy, just whole plant foods." And she says, "Why do we want to do that?" And I said, "Well, because I've been doing a lot of research, and it's the healthiest diet, and I want my blood vessels to last for eternity, and I think it would be good for you, for everybody to be on a diet like this. I've been doing a lot of research." And I said, "Do you think we can transition? I know it's going to be hard. Can we transition that way in maybe about a year?" What did you say?
Let's start now. I'm Romanian, that's my background, and one thing about Romanians, they like challenges and they like to make something out of nothing, because when we went to the store, you could never find what was on your grocery list. So you always had to adjust to whatever you found in the store. So I thought, okay, let's try it. The hardest thing was the milk, because you could not find anything but soygen or something else, and I wouldn't feed it to even my cat. So it was very, very challenging. So we started with the rice and almond and all those other making your milk. Now we have it very easy. You can buy 10, 15 kinds of milk, sweetened, unsweetened, vanilla, hemp or chia, whatever kind of macadamia milk, whatever kind of milk you want, you can go and get it. At that time, we had to make everything from scratch. You could not find anything that tasted good. So it was a journey, but it was really exciting. The thing is, that's why I said I became his assistant, is because he started giving lectures. And was in '86, and there are not vegetarian cookbooks that you can buy, plant-based, really. So he said, "Can you come and demonstrate what we're talking about?" And I thought, okay, sure, let's try that too. I was working full-time, I was doing all of this stuff, and you have 100 people coming to a cooking school. They're very curious. Oh, I thought I would make waffles. I had no idea it's going to take 8 minutes to cook a waffle. And my first time I was doing that, and I thought, wow, how am I going to make this happen? So anyhow, he spoke, and I made waffles. And then before you know, everybody had a little slice of waffle. But that was the beginning. And we raised 4 kids, 4 boys. Like she said, they're all, I would say, plant-based. Occasionally, they would have a vegetarian and dish or whatever, and then they tell me why they think they shouldn't have done it, because
A lacto-ovo vegetarian.
yeah. So anyhow, they have done very well. We ended up mainly on 2 meals a day, even from early on, and as a result, we ended up with this cookbook, because when they went to bed and I tucked them in bed, they told me what they want for breakfast. They were starting to think. They were getting hungry. But they went to bed at 7:30, so we had the second meal like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 1:30, 2, depending on when he could take off. So breakfast became the highest, most expected meal of the home. And I had no idea, after I made scrambled tofu every Sunday for about a year or so, one day I thought, oh, well, I don't have tofu, may as well skip it. I had 3 boys in tears because they didn't have their scrambled tofu on Sunday morning. So mothers, grandmothers, develop a menu. And every day, today's pancakes, waffles, tofu wraps or whatever, simple steel cut oats or whatever. And that way it's a routine. You don't even have to think, oh, what am I going to do? And that way you have all the ingredients you want in the house. So it's really nice to develop a menu, something that everybody likes, particularly breakfast. What you put in that body first thing in the morning is going to be how long your car runs for the day. So what we want to make sure to put whole plant, grains, legumes, and not just a donut and a cup of coffee. That's been something that I try really hard to change the culture, that you start with a really good menu for the day.
So yeah, I was surprised when she said, let's start now. If it's the best diet, why wait? And I said, well, do you think you're going to be able to do this? And then, like she said, she likes a challenge, and so she went for it. And now we've done, I don't know how many cooking and nutrition seminars through the years. So what's happening first, and unfortunately I tried to flip this.
Sorry.
They're wanting me to spend more.
Afterwards, stop by the table
program.
and you can take a picture. If you don't have the book, it's right here. The depression, as I said, I'm his assistant when it comes to this, because he says that we need all those ingredients in certain foods. So I'm looking out there, and for this class we teach this, and for diabetes we teach this, and for heart disease we teach this. But go ahead.
Do you sell your cookbooks?
Yes, I do, and I do have some here too. But anyhow, it's going to be in the Depression the Way Out book, and it's called Omega Boost Granola. And the main thing, it's taking a lot of nuts. I know it's easy to go and buy the granola, but it's nothing like your homemade granola. It just doesn't beat the taste. So I have walnuts, almonds, pumpkin, and then we're going to add some dry fruit. But I'm going to do that. I noticed that when I bake it, you always learn. So don't get discouraged. If it's something that you don't like, next time make the adjustment. Next workbook, next recipe will add the fruit at the end, because the apricots turn a little bit bitter when you roast them. So don't add any dry fruit in your granola till after it's baked. And it's cooled down, then you add your dry fruit to it. So we just added that dry fruit, and then I'm having a mixture here of dates and almond butter, and I think like a tablespoon of canola oil. It's optional, you don't have to use that. So you just mix it up good, then you add some dry oats to it, and then you bake it. And it's 10 minutes, you turn it, and you bake it another 15 minutes, and it's done. So it's very quick granola, very robust, because it has the sunflower seeds, it has the pumpkin seed, flax seed, chia seed, it has it all. Walnuts, almonds. I want to make sure.
So these are your high omega-3 foods, but there is also other advantages outside of that. Walnuts, as you noticed earlier today, was in the top 5 there on omega-3 foods. Almonds also are high in omega-3, and the advantage of both of those is they have favorable P to S ratios. That means they're going to be lower in saturated fat, higher in polyunsaturated, and if you have a P to S ratio of 2 or greater, your cholesterol is going to go down, no matter what your genetics are. And so that was the problem earlier that's mentioned about coconut oil and the tropical oils. They all have very low P to S ratios, very high in saturated fat, and they're going to increase your liver's production of cholesterol. And so we're also trying to get the patient's cholesterol down, because they'll respond a lot better to treatment when that's done. And so these are foods that are going to be lowering your cholesterol and giving you plenty of the omega-3. Plus, pumpkin seeds are also high in tryptophan and also high in tyrosine. It's the one food that is, pumpkin seeds are on the top 3 list for both of those, tryptophan and tyrosine. Normally it's quite a different list for the tyrosine high foods and tryptophan foods, but this is one that's that's the same. And so, and of course, flaxseed is the highest in omega-3, and then hemp seeds, we mentioned that regarding zinc and also magnesium as well. And so this is a great start to a depressed person's breakfast day, particularly when they're breaking their fast, and it can produce some significant benefit. So going on further, we see this, well, it's I mentioned here. Erica, is there something else I can mention?
I guess next thing we are gonna make a smoothie, and that is from the omega-3 blast smoothie. Again, I'm really focusing on trying to bring, particularly in the younger children, if you tell them, oh, I'm gonna give you some spinach, and I'm gonna give you some flaxseed, and I'm gonna give you hemp seed, what happens? Oh, I don't want to try it. I don't want to try it. So I thought, okay, how can I trick my boys in?
Well, it's not just the boys. We have a lot of teenagers going through our depression and anxiety recovery program. The age group is quite different on one side of the campus where we have the New Start program, and on the other side where we have the depression and anxiety recovery program. So we have anywhere from the highest peak is going to be those between the ages of, we don't take under 13 normally, but between 13 and 30 is going to be a large segment of our depression and anxiety patients that are coming through our program. We don't age discriminate, though. You can go through it at an older age, but this is the group that we're having to feed and having to give good nutrition and have them buy into it. And it's pretty amazing. They end up getting very surprised at how much they like this food. And we do have a rule, though, that they can't bring their own food, and they have to only eat the food that we eat, because if they're allowed to just bring their own food and buy whatever they want to buy, we're not going to be able to alter their brain chemistry that much.
This is for 2 recipes, so I had to separate them. I got a little bit of orange juice there. But anyhow, we add the spinach. Can you tell them a little bit about the spinach content, also folate and all this other stuff?
Yeah, so obviously these green foods are high in folic acid, or folate actually, and folate is very important in being able to make enough of 3 different neurotransmitters: dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. And we measure everyone's folate when they come through the program, and a good serum folate for depression is greater than 15. Now, on your actual lab sheet, LabCorp will say that your folate is okay if it's greater than 3.6. That means you won't have a neural tube defect if you're pregnant, and that's what that 3.6 is based on. But preventing neural tube defects and optimizing brain chemistry are 2 different things. And so we like to see that folate above 15, and this is going to, that spinach and other foods will help with that. In fact, I'll get you a folate list here in a little bit.
So we add the frozen banana to it. I had to keep them in the freezer till the last minute, so I'm sorry I had to go back in the kitchen for a little bit. Antioxidants. Berries are top of the list, particularly the blueberries. So we got 1 cup of frozen blueberries. And then I have a combination, again, of a lot of omega-3 here. I got some flax, walnuts. You know, I think when you're looking at the nature, look at the shape of this. Don't they look like little brains? You know, it's a good reminder. Excellent source of omega-3. Okay, so we got walnuts, flaxseed. Now I add some carrot powder to it because I want to make sure they cannot see any green. So that works very nice. They tell you never to put a spoon in.
This is going to be high in antioxidants as well. These are your top 10 antioxidants according to the Human Nutrition Laboratory in Baltimore, Maryland. And so at the top of the list there are blueberries. Do we have blueberries in there?
Yes, we
Okay.
got a whole cup of blueberries.
Okay.
Frozen blueberries, a whole cup.
And so, in fact, a number of studies have been done on blueberries, even in regards to inflammatory bowel disease. Blueberry smoothies are actually one of the ways of getting your ulcerative colitis and Crohn's into remission. And it was a nice controlled trial on blueberry smoothies.
It will help.
The top 10 antioxidant vegetables, we have spinach in there. I'll comment on kale in a little bit. We don't have garlic in this one.
No, not on that.
But
We'll
this is
comment on
a
that.
smoothie that's quite popular.
She's gonna pass a tasting.
There you go, Rachel.
Yeah, we're done now. Thank you. I look for one in there. You know the kitchen a lot better than I do. So if you want to just do it in the back there, that'll be great. And then
Was that orange juice in the bottom?
yes,
Okay.
orange juice. And because it wasn't mixing well, I added just a tad more to it. The frozen fruit, sometimes you do have to have the time. Okay, any next one? You finished that one?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is a dip, or do you want to talk about kale now?
You want to do kale? Yeah.
Sure.
So
Let's-
I know we heard last time about the potential dangers of kale. And just a little bit about that aspect of things. There's actually very slim, at least peer-reviewed evidence that it is a significant issue. In fact, let me just show you.
Okay, while
this
he's
in a
doing
little
that,
bit.
we're gonna strip the kale. You know, it takes a lot of kale to make a serving, right?
Yes.
I just hold the end, and then you just pull it right between your, and you just go so quickly through the whole batch of it, 2-3 batches, it can be done in no time. I take one large onion and put it on the bottom of the pan. I think you'll see it right here. Oh, I'm gonna serve it right now. I cooked it for about 10 minutes. It's organic. I put all the onion and garlic on the bottom. You can see it now. It's a huge onion, and I like that for flavor, but I don't like to chop it. I keep it in large rings because some people don't like the onion cooked. Some people love it. So this way, when you serve it, you can take only the green, or you can take the onions with that. And it's simple. The only thing, if you want some olive oil, I'm not adding any right now. We're just gonna add about the lemon, squeezed lemon, fresh lemon juice, and a little bit of salt. And that's all what we need. We mix it up a little bit, and that's it. So you'll have a chance to taste it if you want it. If not, tomorrow at potluck.
So
Come back.
whenever we hear some things, and of course, a few years ago there was a big anti-soy movement. We were able to trace that down to a New Zealand horse farmer who wasn't even a medical person that was actually making some claims. And so it's nice to trace down some of these ideas. But yeah, there has been an idea out there that kale is bad for you, and it was actually based on the soil that that kale was being grown in, that was a contaminated and diseased soil. And then Hubbard began to hypothesize that there was a link between kale and various diseases. But as stated here, there's one problem. There's no published peer-reviewed studies whatsoever of a link between kale and various diseases in humans. And there's also no basis for worrying about it as far as the peer-reviewed research is concerned. And so the only link is the 2006 paper by the Czech researchers that showed the hyperaccumulation of thallium, but that has also not been duplicated. And we know from a lot of studies that kale is actually associated with a lot of good health. It's the second highest antioxidant vegetable, very high in C, very high in E, and as mentioned earlier, high in omega-3. And we've actually seen a lot of health-giving properties of kale. And so I would recommend just caution. Yes, we do need to be concerned about the soil that our fruits and vegetables are grown in particular our vegetables. We don't want it to be a toxic soil. But just to balance what you may have heard about earlier.
But the power of the antioxidant in the whole plant, I think
Yes.
something to really...
Yeah, it's worth mentioning that. We can go back to that. The power of whole plant foods exceeds that of their component parts. And so let me mention
Okay, while
that.
you're, or
Go ahead.
you have to pull it up or not?
Yeah, I have to pull it up, so go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to mention that kale grows very easy, and it does last a long time, particularly in the winter gardens and things like that. So I like it to also use it in my flower beds as decoration because that curly leaf is so pretty, and they also come in different colors. So it's the easiest thing to do, particularly if you know, again, what kind of soil you're using and whatever. I encourage kale growing because it's kind of for the beginners. It doesn't take a lot of a lot of work, and it does look pretty.
Do the deer eat it?
Yes. They like the greens. But because I plant it close to the house, they don't seem to come as much. So I don't know where you live, how you do, but yes, they will. Go ahead.
I don't know if it's the right time. I have a question about using gluten-free. and
Okay,
if
we'll get to that in a
whenever.
moment.
Yeah.
So this is the study on kale showing 1 cup of cooked kale is 50 milligrams of vitamin C, 13 units of vitamin E. That's great. But the antioxidant potential of that 1 cup is actually equal to 800 milligrams of vitamin C and 1,100 units of vitamin E, meaning that you're getting a lot more antioxidants than just the C and E. And so it's a lot better. This is why we talk about whole plant foods eaten whole, is because you'll have a lot more potent antioxidant potential by eating those greens. Now, as mentioned, we have 13 and 15 and 19-year-olds actually making this kale. We have cooking schools for them as well. And they love
eat it.
this kale, the way she makes it. It's something that's quite tasty to them and surprisingly so.
Okay, this Depression the Way Out, again, at the end we had an appendix, so I picked some more recipes from there. I made the spinach dip, and what we have here is pretty much sunflower seeds with some cooked brown rice. Or you can use millet, you can use other things if you want to. It's about 3/4 cup of that. And then a little bit of water, lemon juice, you mix it up, and then we add some seasonings like nutritional yeast and garlic. And then we add, after we mix all of that, we're gonna add some chopped vegetables to it. So we have a little bit of water and lemon juice here with the garlic. We blend that. This is spinach dip. It's the first one on your handout. Okay, I think I like it. It's nice when you have your own kitchen, let's put it this way. When you have your own tools, you know how the blender works, you know how the chopper works. It doesn't seem like want to grind it. That's Usually it comes in a paste and not so, but you will get a chance to at least taste it. It doesn't. It's usually a creamy dip, like hummus. That's what this is supposed to turn like. So we'll try one more time here. I think that's as far as we'll go today. You see, it's not as creamy as I would like, but the flavor is going to be there. So we add the colorful green onions, red peppers, and the spinach. Mix it all up, and you can use it as a dip or a spread like this time, because it didn't turn out as a dip. What I would take is whole wheat pita bread, stuff this in, add a slice of tomatoes, and nobody will know the difference. So you just don't get discouraged again. Be creative and try it again with a better chopper. Okay, let's see. You want to talk about tyrosine? Did you mention anything to them about that?
I'll look that
I
up
just
so you can
feel-
get the high tyrosine foods.
Because it smells very, very nice. And the only thing I'm going to do to this, add the spinach. And that is in the kitchen. So let's see on that. And we have 2 more recipes left. That's going to go fairly quick. While he's finding the cookies. Did you like the cookies?
Yes.
Okay. The main ingredient we have is walnuts. We use 2.5 cups of walnuts that were ground. And then we use different kind of flours. For gluten-free, you can use oat flour, I use almond flour, and the other cookie was oat flour. So the almond flour would make it more crispy. The oat flour would be a little more moist. And we use cranberries instead of, you can use any kind of dried fruit. Dried blueberries would be great. Carob chips, I have used that. Raisins, it's another. But we do like the cranberries in this. You mix all the dry ingredients. And then what we do, we add a little bit of maple syrup to it.
So both of those cookies that you might have had earlier were essentially the same except for
The flour, 2/3
right,
of cup
the
of
moist
flour.
one was oats, and the
More
non-moist
crispy.
one, the
More
crispy
crispy.
one, was a almond flour.
Okay, so to that we just add the maple syrup. That's already, I added some vanilla to it, and you mix that up. And I use the cookie ice cream for making all the cookies the same shape, size. That way all the kids think they've been evenly treated, no partiality. So I just press them in and put them on I use the parchment paper a lot. It saves a lot of work, parchment paper. But I couldn't find a cookie sheet in there, so we pretend that this goes on the parchment paper. Then I use a fork. If you don't have one, I'll use my hands. You just flatten them up with a fork, and you can do 200 cookies in an hour. It's just really, really fast, very easy. One of the fastest recipe. Any questions on that? Okay, Neil, you gonna show them that?
Yeah, so we have tyrosine here. Tyrosine is a potent antioxidant. And notice it's also a precursor for the synthesis of thyroxine. One of the most common questions I get early on when someone is starting to develop hypothyroidism is if there is anything naturally that can be done. Thyroid is actually made out of tyrosine and iodine. That's what the thyroid is doing, is putting those together. And so we've often seen when we get adequate tyrosine, the TSH go down, and maybe just a drop or two of iodine along with it, or it may not be necessary either. but it also turns into dopamine and norepinephrine. Dopamine is going to give you motivation. Norepinephrine is going to give you energy and focus. And as noted, it's been shown to improve depression, high blood pressure. Now, the interesting thing about the antidepressants, if we're trying to increase energy, we normally give an SNRI, like Prestige or Effexor or those sorts of medicines. And those medicines actually worsen high blood pressure. In fact, we have to watch the blood pressure carefully. Interestingly, when we get to the root cause, which is not enough norepinephrine, the blood pressure actually comes down with tyrosine. So it's a natural antidepressant as well as an anti-blood pressure or antihypertensive. It also improves cognitive function, can improve memory, and even narcolepsy, which is falling asleep when you don't want to in the daytime when you're at a lecture or something like that. Studies have shown that it improves headaches, stress, fatigue, muscle aches, and sleepiness, and improvements noted in mood, mental states, happiness, mental clarity, hostility, tension, and cognitive tests. You also have improvement. Now, particularly we'll notice these changes. That title is important, tyrosine supplementation in response to stress. So individuals that are having issues with stress, these are the ones that tend to benefit the most in all of these ways by getting at least 1,000 milligrams of tyrosine a day. So that's what we recommend as a minimum. Yes?
Can I ask you, in terms of changing those neurotransmitters, how long does that take, do you think? Do you get data on that?
Yeah, so it'll take normally about a week minimum before we start seeing an effect, and you'll definitely have an effect at 4 to 6 weeks. It'll be pretty remarkable spread. So this is the tyrosine content in foods, and as mentioned, pumpkin seeds were up there at the top. Peanuts are actually pretty good. Sunflower seeds, but you notice oats on the top 5 list there. Almonds also a good source, and edamame shows up again. The green soybeans even higher than the tofu, but tomatoes are also there, and a couple of greens. Lamb's quarters is not the hind leg of a small sheep. It's actually a green. Is lamb's quarters grown up here? Yeah, you have it?
As they call it.
Yeah, it grows as a weed, but if you see that weed, keep it, don't pull it. Wait until it's nice and tender. It's actually the highest form of, or the highest source of calcium that we know. Lamb's quarters is the highest source of calcium. Mustard greens also in there. And then we have the ratio. These are the ratios of the ones that compete against it, crossing the blood-brain barrier. And you see mustard greens actually rise to the top when you look at the ratio. And watermelon is up at the also near the top. Soybeans, pumpkin seeds also there, and chia and flax start showing up as well as sweet potato. So where this can come in to play in our program, since it's an anxiety recovery program as well, it's a caffeine-free program. And people are warned about this before they come. Often they'll get off the caffeine before they're there so they don't have to go through the headaches and the caffeine withdrawal while they're in the program. But we had an individual come through our program who had high anxiety, but he was a trucker for a living, and he actually worked for one of these companies that built a lot of machinery for oil wells in Texas. And he might get a call at 4 in the afternoon saying that he had to deliver a part to Albuquerque, New Mexico, because they ran out of that part or it broke. And they can't have 100 men all getting paid for doing nothing, and so they're rather pay one man a lot of money to ship that part overnight. And so he said, that's often when I get my calls, 4 o'clock, and I'm having to ship something overnight and I didn't know. And what am I going to do without caffeine? Well, once you're caffeine free for 2 weeks, tyrosine will do the trick. And so I told him mustard greens or watermelon. What do you think he chose? And he says it works like a charm. He says it actually does not cause him to feel wired. it did feel, he was able to stay awake with caffeine, but he felt more anxious, he didn't feel good, he felt wired. But he says the tyrosine from the watermelon, it just seems to keep him awake without any of the anxiety part at all. And but the cautionary note is, once you're caffeine free, you don't want to have watermelon in the evening, or even mustard greens in the evening, because you're going to get a little more stimulated and you'll not really want to go to bed.
So breakfast, get your watermelon out. I actually take the whole watermelon. Now they come with a smaller size. I cut it all cubes, so in the morning when we get up, it's all ready to go, and it doesn't take any cutting or
Yeah,
cleaning. So,
good stimulating breakfast
yeah,
food.
so it is very common.
Yeah, question?
I was gonna ask how much watermelon. My husband's from Texas, and it's one of those things, like, he just can eat watermelon all day, every day, but he also drinks a lot of coffee in the morning.
Yeah.
Just
so-
keep him with the watermelon. I don't put any limit on him. That's his number one fruit that he loves in the morning. As long as they have a bathroom close by, everything's fine.
So, yeah, as far as a limit, as far as what he was eating, he would keep it, and of course you have the refrigerator in the truck and things, but he would keep it in actually the form of kind of watermelon juice almost. And he would just drink that periodically. It would keep him awake. Yes.
So this would be something that one would do as they're transitioning away from caffeine?
Yeah, they could even do it as a transition, but it actually doesn't work as a stimulant when you're on caffeine so much. So, the people that are on caffeine, I've told them to try to do that. When they're under caffeine withdrawal, it doesn't seem to stimulate them. But after they're through with the withdrawal, which can take about 14 days, that's when they'll start noticing a significant stimulatory effect from it.
I was going to say about driving, trying to keep awake, I've in the past used just these fresh peas that you just pick a pea, put it in your mouth, munch it, you get them at Trader Joe's in a bag, or little bitty carrot sticks. And if I'm chewing on something, I stay awake.
Yeah,
But I love
good-
this list.
good
because
thought, yeah.
I can do that with pumpkin seeds, you can have those in a bag and
Yeah.
munch, and then you get the tyrosine.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
The last thing I'm going to mention, we're running out of time here, and I know we have a couple of more questions. Tofu. It's gotten the bad rap many times because if it's not seasoned, or, some people just really have rough time when they're used to meat to introduce them to tofu. And I have found out that if you season it well, if you give it a little more texture, they seem to do a little bit better. So one of the recipes that everybody learns to make, it's an English muffin sandwich, or pretty much it's dipped tofu seasoned. And that's the recipe I taught the boys when I was not home. I said, just get your tofu out and mix up any seasonings you get. Right now it's a chicken base like, a little bit of soy sauce, water, just mixing it. The recipe, it's in the Brighten Up Breakfast, page 159. You can make it just like that and dip it, and it's faster than going to buy a sandwich. So I just take the tofu, slice it up. I'm gonna, according to that pan, I think I'm gonna do it smaller. You just dip it in, so it sticks right nicely to it, and then you brown it. Now, if I have to do a lot, I would put it on a cookie sheet with a parchment paper, put all of it to go in the oven, get a nice sweet onion and put it on top with some garlic, and you just bake it. And then it's all done very quickly. But with kids, and only if you want only for 2 or 3, you can have this, dip it, any seasoning that you like, the tofu will take that flavor. Question?
What temperature do you put?
375, 350, 375. It's only about 30 minutes, just till it browns. 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the tofu. If the tofu is very soft, it will take a little bit more to evaporate and hold that, take that shape. But if it's firm, just to brown it. Or you can use a skillet and just in 5 minutes it's ready.
All our
Brown it.
teenagers love that recipe
Yes,
as well.
very.
They want that.
Right now, in the bowl, what I use is the recipe from Brighten Up Breakfast 159. You should have it there, I thought. English muffin sandwich. It's water and liquid amino or soy sauce. I tend to combine those two, so it's not as strong. The soy sauce is not that strong. I dilute it. And then I have a little more water than the soy sauce, so it's a little more than 2 to 1. And then the nutritional yeast, the Nuge.
Oh, yeah, Nutrilicious.
Yeah, Nuge, yeah, the whatever. So that, and then onion powder, garlic powder, and some chicken style seasoning.
Thank you.
Okay. I like smoked paprika on it.
Oh, sure.
It's also very nice. The Hungarian paprika, it gives it a very nice flavor. Any questions?
So as far as the aminos now, is that issue around coconut, like that, I'm just kind of wondering, coconut aminos.
Coconut amino, I have done it with that and it worked fine. It's the saturated fat that we're against that. So when we're pulling out, we're not so much against using the coconut as much as using the saturated.
That's right. Coconut itself, it takes a lot of coconuts to make a tablespoon of coconut oil. And so if you're just putting coconut strips on things or doing things like that, then we don't have an issue with that. It's when we refine it and put it in the coconut oil that we're actually getting lots of, of coconuts at once, particularly in the oil
Yeah,
form.
the
And
same thing
that's the very
Dr.
saturated form.
Dysinger was saying, you know, Neil has, well, I'm plant-based. What are you eating? And we find out everything has coconut oil in it. And it's just from cookies to whatever, you know, they use it liberally.
Some of the vegan cheeses and vegan butters
Yes,
are
a
going to have a
lot
lot
of
of
it.
coconut oil in it, so you're going to want to look at your ingredient list on that. Not all of them will. Some of them are going to be very healthy, others not so much.
Yeah. Okay, we're done. Now we can take some questions, but if you want, she had her question.
So, pros and cons of a gluten-free.
One of those transition foods is called the Cedar Lake chop, and it's made out of wheat meat. It's not made out of soy, and people will talk about this being a comfort food, even though it's not sugar or those types of things. It's just because it has tryptophan and it's combined with carbs and it gets into the brain, it really helps their depression significantly. And so we don't want you to do the white flour because you remove the omega-3, remove 80% of the iron. Actually, you remove all of the iron when you make it white. That the U.S. government mandates that you enrich white flour. It will say enriched white flour. But what that means when it says iron enriched is that they have put 20% back of what they took out. I don't know about you, but if someone took $100 away from me and gave me $20 back, I would not say I was enriched. But that's what it says. And so and of course, you get vitamin E, so many other good nutrients. Wheat has actually been shown to be an antidepressant food for those that aren't sensitive to it. And it turns out of those 4% that are sensitive, many of them are actually sensitive to the pesticides that are used in commonly grown wheat. So if they would actually use organic wheat, many of them would not actually have a wheat problem at all. And so we're not against wheat in general. We're not even against whole wheat flour in general. For those that are sensitive to it, there are other ways of getting those nutrients. You don't absolutely have to be on wheat to get those nutrients, but it is a staple that actually is healthy for most individuals. And many people are very excited to learn about that when they come to our program. We, of course, still have we always have some gluten-free individuals in our program. We serve them as well, and be able to work around that. But for many people, whole wheat shouldn't be avoided like the plague, like many people kind of act. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right, well, you've been a very attentive group, and you've been here all day. So congratulations to you for coming to this presentation, and I'll turn it over to our host. Yeah, so I think there were two books they were coming from. Brighten Up Breakfast. I don't know if she showed you. This is what the sandwich looks like that she would have just made. And that comes from the Brighten Up Breakfast. There's savory breakfast as well as non-savory here. And then we have a textbook called Depression the Way Out. Better Food, Better Mood. There's a chapter in there as well as other things that will help in the middle of the book. No, they would not be in the other book. I'm trying to actually find them in this book. They are in this book. We actually just redid a whole new version of this book. As you can see, I'm not as familiar with this new version, but she'll be able to show you. There's multiple recipes in this book as well. And you can get those. Yeah, Erica suggested also if you want to have access to our newsletter that we put out every month, you could give us your email and we can ship you that that PDF file that had all the recipes that she had on there today. And you wouldn't have to buy it that way in order to get it that way. So if you could give Erica your email and you'll get access to our, we actually don't sell our list, so we're not going to give it away to anybody. But you'll be able to get access that way and she'll be able to send you those recipes.
I'll start a list here for anyone who wants to get on Dr. Nedley's mailing list to get the PDF that he mentioned. Okay, so I will start here. Okay, well, thank you all for coming today. I'm really excited. Just a couple of quick things before we end today. Don't forget, if you're curious, if you want to watch some of the talks again, they are on the Lotus Health Foundation Facebook page. So you can go on the Facebook page and you can access them. Until May takes them down, which is probably never. So tomorrow morning, we don't start our program here till 1:30 tomorrow. So what I would say is downtown, if you're local, downtown at the Peace Plaza, the mayor has her initiative. It's Healthy Community. There's a Healthy Community initiative down in the Peace Plaza from 10 to 2. If you go, make sure though you're back here at 1:30 for our first session tomorrow at 1:30. I know I mentioned this earlier. If you have not filled out your survey, please do so and leave it at the front desk as you leave. Any questions, please don't hesitate. Grab me, ask me what's going on. For those of you who are going to the gala dinner, we will meet you there at 5:30. 5:30 is the cocktail half hour, and dinner starts at 6. Thanks, everyone.